Hello and welcome to this week's AFCBTV preview show. We're staying inside today and I'm joined by Neil Perrett, formerly of the Bournemouth Daily Echo and now a member of our media team here at AFC Bournemouth. Let's take a look at what's coming up today. We'll be looking back at last week's 2-0 defeat to Everton at Goodison Park. We'll also be discussing the under-18s and their cup progress in the FA Youth Cup earlier in the week. And finally we'll be turning our attention to the visit of West Ham United this weekend. Well, we're going to start back at last weekend and that 2-0 defeat at Goodison Park. Neil, the scoreline didn't quite reflect the game, did it?
Certainly didn't. It was a first half dominated by Bournemouth, and people talk about fine margins in matches, and it was certainly one of those matches where David Brooks' shot hits the post, if that goes in, and things like that were going in at the start of the season. And then, of course, there was the Josh King close-range effort, which was saved by Jordan Pickford's legs. If either of those go in, it's a totally different game. I think it was one of those games where the first goal was obviously going to be so decisive, and as it happened, Everton got it. They improved after the break, as they were always going to do at home. But yeah, it certainly didn't reflect the scoreline. And
Eddie Howe's just said in his pre-match press conference that there were so many positives to take, especially from that first half.
Well, exactly. I mean, when things aren't going your way, the main thing you want to see from the team is them performing and playing really well and creating chances, and they've certainly been doing that. Obviously, if you're in a dip and you're not creating chances or not playing well, then the alarm bells will sound. But that's certainly not the case at the moment.
And we saw Nathan Ake also cleared one off the line, but he didn't look like he knew too much about it, did he?
I've seen it a couple of times. It looked like a fantastic goal line clearance, but when you look at it, he was in the right place at the right time. It looked like it just hit his leg, but that's what being a defender's all about. You've got to be in the right place, and he certainly was. So saved a goal there. And
when the goal did come, it was just one small lapse of concentration, a free header at the near post.
Yes, it was unfortunate. Obviously Zuma was always going to be a big threat in the air from crosses and set pieces, and so it proved. And he got up well at the near post and beat Asmir. But looking at it again, early on in the season, Asmir came out and was big. Things like that were hitting his hands and going past the post, but that one went in. Seems to be the luck at the moment.
And then obviously the second goal, Bournemouth were pushing forward. They were looking for an equaliser, and then it just came on the counter attack.
Yeah. And that happens often, when you're going for broke almost in the last few minutes and pushing men forward, and they exploited that. But that took a deflection as well. Let's not lose sight of that.
And of course, last week they were without Callum Wilson. How much of a miss was he?
Well, any team is going to miss its leading goal scorer. He's got 10 goals for the club and 1 for his country. He's been in great form this season. Obviously going to be a massive miss, as it proved. Josh King came in and did a great job up there, but the two of them have been working so well together over, down the years. They struck up a relationship now, so obviously going to be a big miss. The manager's just told us that he's touch and go for tomorrow, probably going to be facing a late fitness test, so hopefully he'll come through today's training session and be in contention.
And of course last week we had some options on the bench. Lys Mousset came on, and generally another positive performance off the bench from him.
I think Lys did very well when he came off the bench. We've seen in fits and starts how powerful and explosive he can be when he comes on. It was unfortunate with the Brighton miss. If that had gone in, we could have sparked his season, if you like. It's things like that for strikers. They thrive on confidence, thrive on goals, obviously. I think he just needs one goal off any part of his body, and we could see a new Lys Mousset, if you like.
And obviously following the defeat last week, where does that leave Bournemouth now? They haven't won since the Brighton game before Christmas, but the performances have generally been there.
Like I said earlier, if the performances are there, then there's no alarm bells, and it's encouraging. It just needs the luck to turn, maybe. Maybe a scruffy goal, or the benefit of the doubt, or a decision to go their way, which have had a lot of decisions going against them in recent weeks. Okay, they had them go for them at the start of the season, but just one more win, and one win, and I think things will turn in the second half of the season.
And we talked about decisions there. Andre Gomez last week, he had a yellow card in the second half, but there were a few instances where he could have had a second.
I think, like we said at the start of the season, things were going our way. I mean, he probably would have been sent off early on for a couple of reckless fouls. But yeah, it just needs something to go their way, like a refereeing decision. And he was a very fortunate lad. I mean, I think even Everton would agree that he was fortunate to stay on. And then, of course, there was the foul on Ryan Fraser, which 9 times out of 10 any referee's going to give that as a penalty.
And of course, just a word on the fans last week, travelling all the way up to Everton when a game was on TV. That was quite special, wasn't it?
Well, it's remarkable. People were leaving Weymouth, I think, at 3 a.m. in the morning. That just shows the dedication to the team. You know, it's not like it's a new ground or anything like that. People have been there before. So it's remarkable to see, and it's just fantastic that, you know, fans are getting up on a Sunday morning at that time and travelling, getting on the coach, and it's a long journey as well. So brilliant to see.
Absolutely. Well, it certainly doesn't go unnoticed. Well, earlier this week, the under-18s took to the FA Youth Cup where they played Oxford United in the 4th round. Let's take a look at how they got on. Well, there we go. A hat-trick from Jake Scrimshaw saw the Cherries progress in the FA Youth Cup to the 5th round for just the 2nd time in their history. Neil, there's just one place to start, and that is with that hat-trick. It was quite something, wasn't it?
It was a stunning hat-trick. The first 2 goals in particular were class goals, brilliantly taken. It looks a real hot prospect from what we've seen so far. I think he scored 10 goals in 4 games against Oxford this season, and we were at the game and somebody was telling me that apparently the whole Oxford front line haven't scored 10 goals between them this season, so what a feat that is. They were under the cosh for the first 20 minutes, they rode the storm, they kept playing how they like to play, they were playing out from the back. It's a very brave way to play, particularly when you're under the cosh and they're all 18, but they stuck to their principles and it paid off. They grew into the game, and then Jake scored a fantastic opening goal, which we've just seen, curled it round the goalkeeper, and his second goal I think was even better, because if you look at the footage, he's taken a knock on the halfway line, looks like he's going to pull up, but he's so determined to get into the box, and it was an absolutely fantastic cross from Christian Sadie, and he glanced his header over the goalkeeper. Older Bournemouth fans will remember a goal that Jermaine Defoe scored at Oxford on Boxing Day, where he chipped the goalkeeper who was virtually standing on his goal line. I'm not saying it was as good as that, but to head the ball over the goalkeeper who'd only strayed a few yards off his line was a fantastic goal.
And you said about that first goal, it really was crucial, wasn't it? Because Oxford were pushing forward and they looked most likely to score.
I think they certainly looked most likely to score in the opening 20 to 25 minutes, but Bournemouth showed their defensive resolution, which is you're going to come under pressure. You're away from home. You know, there was a few local fans there, so they were right behind their team, but they withstood that. There weren't that many scares. Okay, they were under pressure, but the goalkeeper didn't have too many saves to make, and they grew into the game, like I said, and ran out convincing and worthy winners in the end to set up a mouth-watering tie against Aston Villa in the next round.
And there were some really good other individual performances in that game. We saw Christian Sadie get 2 assists, and Nathan Mariah-Welsh was very good in the centre of the park as well.
I think, like Jake Scrimshaw said at the end of the game, you know, it's unfair to single anyone out. You know, there were 11 great performances, and from the guys who came off the bench as well. It was a fantastic all-round team performance. You know, Alan Connell said to me after the game, not building the guys up too much, but he looks at York and Cole, and he looks at Scrimshaw and Sadie. I'm not saying there's any comparison between the two, but he said he reminded them of a young York and Cole, which is a great, you know, comparison to make. They certainly look like they're in form. They're scoring goals between them. The captain, Brennan Camp, at the back, you know, marshalled the troops superbly. They just look really solid all round. I think it was a great team performance. And
it's worth mentioning as well that the under-18s, they play in the same league as Oxford, and Oxford actually won that league, so it goes to show quite what a performance it was, that they've gone there 1-3-0.
Yeah, I mean, they played them they played them that's the fourth time they played them this season. They beat them 5-0 in the Youth Alliance Cup, and they drew both league games, which were really competitive, 3-3 and a 1-1. Oxford won the league. There's still one game to go. They've got one game to go, but they're 4 points ahead. But I think what you've got to remember is that, you know, Bournemouth have got the under-21s as well, and they're loaning players out in that team, so the 18s will be promoted to fill the gap. So obviously that means that Scholars will get their chance in the under-18s. So they're not always fielding their strongest side, if you like, and maybe Oxford had the luxury of being able to do that. I don't know, but you know, they're only going to miss the title by maybe 1 point if they can win their last game. And
you spoke to Alan Connell after the game. He was absolutely delighted, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was great to see Alan. He was beaming from ear to ear. Obviously, he's just become a father for the first time as well. His partner gave birth to a little girl just after Christmas, I think it was. So he's obviously been having some sleepless nights on that front, and maybe thinking about the game and getting ready and preparing for the game. But he was delighted. Yeah, I mean, he said, you know, to a man, they all performed brilliantly, and he's really looking forward to the next game, which is going to be here at Vitality Stadium as well. So hopefully we can get a lot of people along.
Absolutely, that game against Villa, it's going to be here. It will be, as you say, great to have a big crowd along, and a really good opportunity for our players to showcase themselves as well.
I think they deserve a big crowd. It's only the second time in history that the club has reached the last 16 of the FA Youth Cup. I think we're going back to 1968-69 when they were beaten in the semi-final by Sunderland, and that was a fantastic youth team as well, so I'm told. I wasn't old enough to see them, unfortunately, but yeah, they deserve a big crowd. Aston Villa are Category 1, whereas we're Category 3, so they're going to be the underdogs certainly, but a big crowd could make all the difference if they can get everybody here, and I think the game is certainly going to be in the next maybe 10 days, hopefully.
Absolutely. Well, when we have confirmation of when that game is, it will be posted across all of our social media channels and our website. Well, next up for the first team is the visit of West Ham United here at Vitality Stadium. But let's just remind ourselves of what happened earlier in the season at the London Stadium.
The player of the year for West Ham last year. He's got the opportunity to score the first home goal of the season here at the London Stadium, and West Ham's first goal of the season. Arnautovic against Begovic, makes no mistake, bottom left-hand corner. And the Cherries will have to come from behind here. West Ham 1, Cherries 4. Chance to bring it away. Wilson in the centre circle, swinging from end to end this. Callum Wilson's got to do this all on his own at the moment. He's gone past one, he's still going, he's gone past two. Callum Wilson! My goodness me, what a goal! Callum Wilson has started this season on fire. Back-to-back goals, and that is one of his best Bournemouth efforts ever. Past two men, slotted it past the goalkeeper, and the Cherries back on terms on the hour. It's like a short corner in hockey nearly from Ryan Fraser. A short man to take it. Clipped in towards the hip here post, and it's in! A diving header has found the back of the net from Steve Cook. He threw himself towards it, floated in by Fraser and powered home by Cook. And the Cherries have turned this around in the space of about 6 minutes.
Well, a stunning solo goal from Callum Wilson there, as well as a Steve Cook header, saw the Cherries pick up all 3 points on just the second day of the season. Neil, it's going to be a very different game tomorrow. West Ham, they've picked up some points recently, none more so than the 3 against Arsenal last weekend.
It was an absolutely fantastic result. I think, you know, they're on good form, but I think everybody probably expected Arsenal to win that game, and it was a great goal from Declan Rice, who turned 20 on Monday's probably the man of the moment amongst West Ham fans. Started off playing as a defender, and he's been transformed as a midfield player, and he's bossing games at such a young age. So he's certainly a player that Bournemouth are going to have to keep an eye on tomorrow. as is Felipe Anderson, who's scored a fantastic goal at Southampton to win the game for them there. And like we said, they lost their first 4 games. A new manager came in, took a little time to implement his style, get the players playing how he wanted, but he's certainly done that now, and they're reaping the rewards. Like, they've had a fantastic festive period, climbed the table, almost safe, so they can come along and play with a bit of freedom, so it could be a fantastic game. Had some great tussles with West Ham down the years, lots of goals, so fingers crossed.
And if you look at the Premier League table at the moment, there's almost a mini league in the middle with teams like Bournemouth, West Ham, Everton, Watford, etc. 3 points can go a really long way, can't it?
3 points, massive 3 points. I mean, you think that, we haven't picked up 3 points for a long time, but we're still in that hunt for 7th place, and it's so congested there. But first and foremost, we probably want to make sure that we stay in that little mini league, and 3 points tomorrow would certainly help go a long way to that.
Absolutely, and that 2-1 win at West Ham earlier in the season, can they take confidence from that?
I think they can take confidence from the 2-0 defeat at Everton last week, where they played really well and they created a lot of chances. Nathaniel Klein's obviously come in on loan from Liverpool and helped with that problematic right-back berth where Simon Francis is out for the season, and he looked like he hasn't played many games over the last 18 months, but he certainly didn't look like that at Everton. So I don't think they'll be looking as far back as the London Stadium. I think they'll be looking to the last game, to the last training session, and I think they can go into the game with a lot of confidence. You
mentioned Felipe Anderson there and Declan Rice. They're 2 players that Bournemouth will really need to look out for. There's also the likes of Javier Hernandez, Mikel Antonio, and Andy Carroll's back fit as well. So it's quite a star-studded team, isn't it?
Most squads in the Premier League are star-studded, and we used to talk about a danger man, but now it's danger men. There's fantastic players in every position, and West Ham are no exception to that. So, but we've got good players as well, so it's 2 good sides going head to head.
And of course, we've got Callum Wilson potentially back this weekend as well. That'll be such a boost. We spoke about him being missed at Everton earlier, so to potentially have him back, Eddie said there'd be a late decision. It's going to be interesting to see, isn't it?
Every team misses their leading goal scorer, and you could argue that yes, we've missed Callum in the last 2 games. He sat out the FA Cup defeat by Brighton and sat out against Everton. But you've got to be so careful with a hamstring injury. If you bring somebody back too soon, rush them back, you risk losing them for 6 weeks, 2 months maybe, and that's the last thing we want to do with Callum now, because we're going to need him for the rest of the season. So I'm sure they're going to wrap him up in cotton wool, tread carefully with him, and make the right decision to see whether he starts tomorrow, whether he's on the bench tomorrow, or whether he doesn't feature at all. But it'd be a big boost if he came back.
And Jefferson Lamry still one booking away from missing 2 games. Obviously, we've got Chelsea coming up next. You wouldn't want that booking coming tomorrow, would you?
Well, I think the manager's just said in his press conference it's probably inevitable that it's going to come at some stage. He has been the victim of some harsh decisions, if you like. He's so combative in the midfield there, like an enforcer, and one of his tackles might look a bit worse than someone else's tackle, and all of a sudden the referee gets a yellow card out. I think if they used a little bit more common sense maybe, and then maybe he would have had 5 bookings or something like that. But it is what it is. You don't want it to inhibit the way he plays, because he's such a good player in that position. So yes, it will probably come, but the longer it goes without it, the better.
And Eddie Howe's just said that Callum Wilson is touch and go. Simon Francis and Lewis Cook we know will both be out, but apart from that there's no fresh injury concerns, which is a real boost as well, isn't it?
It's a massive boost at this stage of the season. You think we're gone past the halfway mark, and Callum is the only doubt at the moment. Obviously it's a great loss with Simon Francis and Lewis Cook being out, but most squads will have injured players, probably more than 3. So yeah, it's great to have a almost fully fit squad going into the second half of the season when points are going to be so important.
Absolutely. Well, it's certainly going to be a very exciting game here tomorrow. If you are coming, we do hope you enjoy it, but if not, make sure you keep an eye on all of our social media and our website for the latest updates. Thanks for joining us.